my name is Tori. This is Novel Life. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my March reading wrap-up. In the month of March, I read a total of 14 books. At the beginning of March, my reading was really good. I had a lot of 4- and 5-star reads. And then when I got back from my trip, I went to Orlando for Magic with the Bells, which is a book signing. A bunch of my friends and we went to Disney the other 2 days. And since I got back, my reading has been not the best. Not the best. So I have some statistics to share with you before we dive into all of my thoughts on the books that I read in March. Like I said, I read 14 books in the month of March. I had an average rating of 3.92, which isn't horrible, but I wish it was better. Okay, I had 6,553 pages read. I read 2 physical books, which were ARCs. I had 4 ebooks that I read, and I read 8 audiobooks. Audiobooks always dominate my statistics because that is how I primarily read. I love audiobooks. I think it is such an accessible way to read books, and it's just my preferred way of reading if I can get the audiobook. I had 3 5-star reads, which one of those was a reread. I had 1 4.5 star. I had 4 4 stars, 3 3.5 stars, and then 3 3 stars. So like I said, those 3 stars and 3.5 stars were all at the end of March, which I'll get into. I read 9 romances in March. I read 3 romantasy and or fantasy romance, whatever you want to call it. 1 fantasy, and then 1 historical fiction, which I always read 1 historical fiction a month because of my book club. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the books because I have a lot to chat about. I read a trilogy. It is called the Edge of Darkness trilogy. I binged all 3 books in this series in a weekend. So March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I read all 3 books. So the first book is Insatiable by Lee Rivers. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The second book is Voracious. I ended up giving this one also 4 stars. The third book, which is Restitution, I also ended up giving 4 stars. Now, because I binged this back to back to back, I'm going to talk about it all together. The whole trilogy follows the same couple. It is one of the darkest romances I've read. I haven't read a dark romance in quite a while, but this really gave me that itch to like dive into all the dark romance backlist books that I have on my TBR. But I have never read a Lee Rivers book. I do know she has another book with like a spider on the cover, which low-key freaks me out, so I might skip that one. I do have Psychotic Obsession, which is her newest book that just came out in March, if I'm not mistaken, downloaded on my Kindle. I may be reading that pretty soon, but I love this trilogy. It is, like I said, a dark romance. So this is a second chance romance. Our hero is definitely morally gray, so if that's not your thing, go ahead and skip this series. I really loved it because like the second chance part is they had like a little forbidden secret romance when they were younger, and then certain things happened and they kind of split up, and she never kind of voiced the truth, and he always thought something different happened. It was basically a miscommunication, and I usually don't like that in romances, but it made sense in this particular instance of why she was keeping it a secret. They both have a lot of trauma, so definitely check the trigger warnings because it's a lot. I think the author has either a link at the beginning of the ebook or she lists them out, but definitely check them if you are not an avid dark romance reader. I kind of went into this blind. I did obviously read some of the triggers just because I like to know, but I loved this series. It is unhinged, alpha hero, dark morally gray, kind of mafia-ish organized crime vibes. That's what I was getting, and I loved it so much. Like I said, I want to read more dark romances, so if you have any recommendations for me, drop them in the comments because I would love to read them. Then I did a reading vlog where I think I did this vlog. Did I do this vlog? Yeah, where I was catching up on series, if I did that. Anyway, I read Wildside by Elsie Silver. This is a new release. It came out at the beginning of March. I had an ALC for this book. I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars. I did enjoy this, but it's not my favorite in the Rose Hill series, and I think it's only because they have the marriage of convenience trope in here. That's not my favorite thing to read. That's just not a trope that's like an all-time favorite. I also really enjoyed the characters. I just didn't like personally connect to them like I did in Wild Eyes, which is the second book in this series. But this is like a really fun marriage of convenience. It takes the single parent trope in like a different way. I wouldn't necessarily call it single dad. I also wouldn't call it single mom. Basically, our female character's sister passes away at the beginning of the book, and she has I think he's 3. Is he 3 or 5? He's relatively young, and you see that in her will, she wanted the child to live with Reese, who is our hero, who used to be her landlord. Why would my sister leave her kid to this random person? Like, this is kind of out of the blue. Like, where is this coming from? And so, like, she kind of has custody over him, but Reese also does too, and they kind of spend time together. So I wouldn't necessarily call it like single parent. It's like interesting in a way that I've never read a book before, and I think Elsie Silver did a really good job with like this co-parenting aspect. Also, they get married because he wants to stay in Canada, but he has a job in the US, so he has to get married to a Canadian native, and that's where the marriage of convenience ties into. I did enjoy this book. It was a good read. The narrators did a good job telling the story. Like I said, I just didn't emotionally, personally connect to these characters, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a really good book. I just really enjoyed the story. Spicy. I love female characters written by Elsie Silver because they're badass in their own way. So yeah, this is my fourth book I read in March. Then I moved on to fantasy romances, okay? And I was in the mood to read Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. So this is the first book in the Shards of Magic series. Now this is, how do I say this? I give this 4 stars. It is a good start to the series. I am extremely interested in the 4th book. This is one of the books where you have a female character who she goes from like the human world into the magic fantasy world. But it's like more like underground. It's like there's a bog, and then if you go down to the bog, like you get sucked in, you go to the fantasy world, and there is like a wall, like an invisible wall of magic that doesn't let the Fae leave the Fae world, and it's part of like the whole political system. I would say this is heavy on the political intrigue, like the political aspects of the Fae world, so that's not really your thing. I feel like you might find this boring, but for me, I personally love that. I have to be in the mood for those kind of books, but I really enjoyed this. I don't know who the hero is. The hero, I mean, I'm assuming he's introduced in this book, but she has like hinted at like a couple of different people that she finds attractive. It's like kind of helping her. She has this deal with one character that I personally really like. I just hope that he's the hero, but I could be totally wrong. I'm hoping that we see it in the next book in the series. But yeah, this was a really, really good start to a series, and I definitely will be picking up the next book. I also love it that this is hardback, but there's not a dust jacket. Like it's the, like just a plain naked hardback. I'm like, we need to bring this back because I love this. I hate dust jackets because I just not throw them away, but I put them to the side when I read them because they always get torn and stuff. But I love this. I love the audiobook. It was so good. I ended up giving this one, like I said, 4 stars. Then I did a reread of a favorite, When Villains Rise by Gianna Darling. So I read When Heroes Fall, end of January, beginning of February. I forgot when I read it, and I wanted to just like pick up this book because I was dying to be back into this world. I love it. This is my favorite book in the duet, but the duet as a whole is amazing. I love Dante and Elena. I've talked about this so many times on my channel, but I love these 2 characters. I also wanted to prepare for My Dark Fairy Tale, which is kind of set in the same world, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it's just like another mafia romance by Gianna that comes out on the 8th of April. And I do have an ALC of that I'll be reading in a vlog coming next week for you guys. But I just wanted to be back with these 2 characters because I love them so much. And yeah, this is always a 5-star read because I've read it, I think 6 times now. That's what my Goodreads says. I've reread the series 6 times because I love it that much. The next book I read was kind of a disappointment. It is one of my most anticipated books that I've read, and that was Heat of the Everflame. So this is over 1,000 pages. A print is over 800, but Kindle says it's over 1,000. And I really wanted to love this more because I love Diem and Luther. I particularly love Luther, but they had this, okay. The romance with this book, and I've sat with my thoughts for a little while because when I read this, I read it for a catching up reading vlog, like catching up in series, and I feel like I didn't voice my thoughts the same way, but all in all, the romance was lacking in this book. For a fantasy romance, I think by the 3rd book, the romance should be pretty heavy, but they had like not bickering, but it wasn't fights. It was just like they had a lot of disagreements in this book to where they weren't really communicating. She was hiding things. Luther was trying to figure out things and help her, and she wasn't really letting him in. And I know that's part of her character development, but for me, I just felt like really underwhelmed because we got this like slow burn over the first 2 books of how Luther is so dedicated to Diem and how much he appreciates her, that I wanted to see their love like blossom, and I wanted them to be like this all-consuming love that they have for each other, but this like powerful couple, if that makes sense, and going forward and with everything that she has to do. And I feel like it wasn't going with I was expecting it to go. It was really a letdown for me, which I don't know if that's the fault of the book or for me for having expectations, but that was the vibe that I was going for, and it just went in a different direction. I also felt this was way too long for everything that happened. She was just going from place to place, and that's not always my favorite. So yeah, this is just a lackluster for me, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. Unfortunately. For that catching up with series vlog, I read King of Pride. Now, I read all of Anna's books except her first series that just was now like republished. I haven't gotten to those yet, but this is the only book in the Kings of Sin series that I had not read. I skipped it and I listened to the audiobook, and I know why I skipped it is because like Kai is an amazing hero. He is so kind and loving and compassionate underneath the facade that he has, but he's not as unhinged and crazy alpha heroes as the other heroes in this series. And I love the Kings of Sin series because they're billionaires, they're alpha, they're over the top, they're protective, they're a toucher and I'll literally kill you. And Kai is just more laid back in that way. So I end up giving this 3.5 stars. Isabella is like a fine character. There is a miscommunication kind of thing. It's the third act conflict in this book that is not my favorite because I was like, girl, I want to reach through this audiobook and just like slap you and be like, get it together. You not see what's happening here. So yeah, it was just one of those things where I felt really frustrated. And sometimes when I read romance books, it'll pop up and just like stick with me and annoy me. And it just so happened to be in this book. But I am all caught up in the Kings of Sin series and I cannot wait for King of Envy. I have a feeling that's going to be a 5-star for me. But this is a 3.5 star. I've given all of Anna's books in the series either 4 or 5 stars. So for this to be the only like 3.5, 4-star book out of the series, I think that's pretty good. I also read the second book in the Embers and the Ashes series, which is A Torch Against the Night, and I ended up giving this a 5 stars. Besides my reread, this was one of the other 5 stars that I had. I love this series. I've said this, if you would have told me that I would have been in love with the YA series this year, I would have said you're crazy. But this doesn't read like a YA series. Like, yes, they're like new adult age, but these two characters are put through the ringer in this book. And even though I was going to say something, but it might be a spoiler. But what happens in this book, I thought I would not like it because it goes in one direction that I wasn't expecting. I didn't mind it. I understood it. The flow of the story is so good. The flow of the character development is so good. And I said this, the highlight is we got a POV from a character that we meet in the first book. And I said this, she would be monotone, boring, but we get inside her head and you see how complex she is as a character. And like Laia and Elias are complex characters. We see that in the first book. But adding this other character like into it, it gives a whole new perspective to the series and really what's going on, that I am wholly invested with these characters in this series. And I'm picking up these books when I'm feeling slumpy, like I'm feeling now at the end of March. But I cannot wait to continue on with this series. It's become one of my new favorites, and I definitely want to read more from Sabatier. The next book I read was Beautiful Exile by Catherine Cowles. This one came out on March 18th. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I love Lincoln Arden. If you have read a lot of Catherine Cowles' books, Arden is unlike any female character that she's read. She is raw. She is gritty. She is the one that has a tortured past and like that makes her not aggressive, but just makes her like grumpy. She listens to heavy metal. She's more of a homebody. She likes to stay home in her studio and paint, and she doesn't like going to the Collective, which is the art gallery where her art's being held, where you can buy it and stuff like that. She doesn't like interacting with people. And then you have Link, who is this billionaire alpha hero. He owns the hockey team that Cope is a part of, which her brother plays on. Arden's brother is Cope that you see in the previous book, but he just like kind of tries to throw his money around, and she's like, you're not fooling me. I don't like that. You're not getting my art. You can't just put a price on it. Like, think that you can get anything that you want. So they have a really interesting meeting. She holds like a switchblade to his neck because she's like, what are you doing in my brother's gem? It is really, really good. It's unlike any of the other Catherine Cowles books, only because she is such a different heroine and I loved her so much. There's just so many good quotes in here too that I highlighted, but definitely check out this Sparrowfall series if you haven't already. Cannot wait for Chasing Shelter, which is the next book in the series. Cannot wait. Now this is where my 3.5 star streak happens. So get ready for a wild ride, okay? I'm gonna try and be as quick as possible with these books because 3.5 star reads, I don't always have a lot to say, but I wanted to point them out. Now, I did read Summer in the City by Alex Astor. This is an arc, and I got this, and the book came out on the 25th of March. Yeah, 25th of March. And you've been around for a while. Me and Alex Astor, her Light Lark series, not for me. No, not for me. But I decided to give her contemporary romance a try. And I will say this, if you love rom-coms, you would love this. It is a perfect book for the summer. She's literally in New York City for the summer. She is living next door to this billionaire guy that she's kind of met before. And she doesn't really like him because of certain things that he said previously. And it's just like an interesting mix, but the flow is a little off because it cuts like time cuts, even though it's just the summer, it like cuts awkwardly. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite thing, but like it was fine. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars. It just was fine. It was a book. Like, it's nothing over the top, but I think that if you like rom-coms, you'd like this because she is more bantery with herself. She's witty. She has that kind of like haha hee hee inner dialogue, which sometimes it works, and I thought it was fine, but it just wasn't like my all-time favorite, if that makes sense. So 3.5 stars. And then I read I'll Leave It to the Pros book club pick for March, which is Out of the Easy by Rita Sepetys. Now, Rita Sepetys has been a favorite author of mine because I read Between Shades of Grey, and then I read Fountains of Silence, and those two were good. But the last two books I've read by her, this one and Salt to the Sea, have not been my favorite. And so I don't know where they are in her publication order, but I ended up giving this 3 stars, which I don't feel bad because Christy, who is my co-host for Leave It to the Pros book club, also ended up giving this 3 stars. Our live show was like 20 minutes long because, like, what do you say about a 3-star read? It was fine. It is a book existing in the world. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't overly emotional. It was just more of this in particular was a coming of age story about Josie. Her mother is a prostitute in New Orleans, about her climbing up and getting out of that poverty and doing what she can. There's a little bit of organized crime stuff. Now, they do mention the Marcello family in here in New Orleans back in the 50s, which the Marcello family was a big thing. And my family, I'm from New Orleans and down on the bayou. So, like, that is a huge part of, like, the history and stuff like that. And I wanted the author to lean more into that, but she didn't. She leaned more into, like, the nuances of her just coming of age type of a thing. So that's why it wasn't my favorite, because the beginning I thought it was going to go in that direction, but it didn't. So is it the book's fault? I don't know, but this one just wasn't my favorite. So I don't know. I think I have only one more book by Rita Sepetys to read, which I definitely want to finish up her backlist so I know what I love and what I don't love by her. But this one just kind of like, it was fine. I did read another physical arc. I read Any Trope But You by Victoria Levine. So this is a physical arc that I got from Atria. This book comes out on the 1st. So when you're seeing this video, you can go check it out. Now, I am doing this whole series over on my Patreon where I'm trying to read through my physical arcs because sometimes physically reading is hard for me and I don't have an ebook or audio to go with it. Sometimes Atria offers the ebook, but I'm always late to grab them. So they're always like, the time has run out. I want to do this new series where I'm reading through my physical arcs. So I read this one. This was an exclusive vlog for them that I posted this past weekend. I always have a 7-day free trial, so you can go check that out and watch my full thoughts on this. But I ended up giving this like 3.5, 4 stars. So this was kind of a highlight in the end of my month. But I like this because it really leaned into the clichéness of romances, but not in a bad way. So it's called Any Trope But You. She is a romance author in the book, and she gets outed for having this document that's happily never afters, where it's just all alternate endings to her romance books that she's written because she doesn't believe in love. She's had a terrible fiance that broke up with her, or she broke up with him or something like that. It was just a bad breakup. So she just never believed in love. And her sister, who is chronically ill, which I will say, if you love to read about that, they don't necessarily put a definition on the illness that she has, but it's just a generalized talk of autoimmune diseases in general, which I actually appreciated. It's just showing that our female character in this book takes care of her sister, and she like made it her life's mission to do that. And it's kind of like setting those boundaries with a loved one of like, you can have your own life having an autoimmune disease. And I actually thought that part, the side part of that, was really beautiful. But her sister, sends our female character, Margot, to Alaska for 6 weeks to like get her mojo back, write a book, get it together. And she meets Forrest, who is a doctor from LA that moved back to his hometown to take care of his father. And it is cute and adorable. I say it's cliche because they go through all of the tropes, like, oh, she gets hurt and he has to carry her down a mountain after hiking. Oh, there you go. They go camping and there's only one tent. Oh, they get stuck in a sauna together, so they have like a little good time there. Oh, they're spending the day, they're snowed in one of the cabins, so there's only one bed. Like, it's cliche in that way, and I actually thought it was fun and clever. So I ended up giving this, like I said, 3.5, 4 stars. Like I said, I physically read this, but I think the audiobook would actually be really, really, really good. So if you end up picking this up and you listen to the audiobook, let me know, because I would love to know what your thoughts are on this one. The last book I read was my March buddy read for Patreon, and I read Iron and Embers by Helen Schwartz. And I've talked about Helen Schwartz's Legends of Thesmar series, and this is the first book in like a duet with Ren, who is the sister of the female character from that other series. And I just had so much more expectations because the Blood and Steel, you start and you're like dropped into all of this, what's the word? It's just so much action, right? And it's always action with any of the books. And there's slow parts of the book, but this first book in the duet in Iron and Embers, it was just slow from the beginning. And it didn't really get better up until like the last 20%, obviously, because they had this conflict. But even that part, I really want to like scream at Torge. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, I understand, but like, what are you doing? Why you be mean? So unfortunately, like that one, this one wasn't my favorite. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was a very long audiobook, and for me to like take my time with audiobooks, that says something, but I just wanted some more action. She's an alchemist. She's going through like this academy and kind of like these challenges. And while that was fun to read, it was easy to put down. It didn't keep my attention. So I felt a little like about it. It could be my fault for having expectations because the Legends of Thesmar series is so action-packed, but I would say it's so fun to see these characters again. I love seeing Althea, I love seeing Kit, I love seeing Cal, I love seeing Wilder, I love seeing all those characters, but I also love this kind of like connection that Torj and Rin had, so that romance part kind of kept me going, their tension and stuff like that. But I don't know, I don't know if I should say yes, no, maybe to this one, but that's all the 14 books that I read in March. You can let me know your favorite book of March in the comments down below if you've made it this far and you want to let me know. Leave me an apple emoji, because one of the book covers, Somewhere in the City, has an apple on the cover. Leave me an apple emoji in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.